Thank you. Okay, so I have a question for everybody here. Who here has gotten close to getting their dream job? Hands. Anybody? Okay, that's really good. You guys are like power people. I like that. Okay, so who here has gotten offered their dream job and said no? Nobody? Oh, yes, one person. Nice. I'm not the only one. Okay, so it was the fall of 2011, and I was working as a fact checker for a celebrity tabloid magazine. So I would verify very important things like the Kardashians' amazing weight loss secret and the ways in which celebrities are very much like us in real life. So I was doing that, and I would be working pretty late hours in a dimly lit office. And one day I was sitting there tooling away, and this email pops up. And it was like, bing, Cosmo editor gig, question mark, you, question mark. And at first I was like, whoa, this is it. And then I was like, delete. And I pressed delete because I didn't think that I was good enough. And I know that I'm not the only one. There are, I don't know if you know this, but 85% of millennials today are not getting jobs. 85%. And I believe that that is because they're not getting jobs out of college because they are not dreaming bigger or wilder enough. Now, I'm going to contrast that to a story of my friend Jennifer. So Jennifer didn't go to college. At 19 years old, she got married, and she started having kids. And over the years, she's had 5 girls. So she's a pretty busy mom. And one day she was in the shower, and she's like flossing, and she realized like the floss was actually pretty much in the drain. So she goes down, she pulls up the floss, and there's like all this hair stuck to it. Now here's the difference between me and Jennifer. I would have been like, ooh, oops. But she saw all of this, and she saw a solution. You see, her girls suffered from allergies, and she couldn't use chemicals. And she realized, you know, I could put this floss back down there. And then it took her about a week before she realized this could be a business idea. And then she took it a step further. She took the $500 she had in her savings account, her family's emergency fund, and she started a business. So the thing I really love about Jennifer's story is that it shows ridiculous imagination to me. I'm like, literally, I would never think of that. I can barely remember to floss half the time. But the fact that she had this kind of imagination just really speaks to me because as a kid, I was obsessed with imagination. I would make up things every day. Every afternoon, I was naming every inanimate object in my house. And the minute my mother turned, I would go in her closet, put on her heels and her best pleather jacket, and become the sexiest Bond villain in the planet. So I had no problem whatsoever dreaming my way into another world. But when there was an opportunity for an editor-in-chief position, then we had a problem. You see, when I picture women that sit in the front rows of Fashion Week with the lights bathed on them and wearing Chanel and Givenchy and looking beautiful, I didn't see myself there. Because first of all, girls that look like this don't sit in rows like that. And girls that have families like mine don't work in offices like that. Even though I'd been working for 15 years in the magazine industry, and I actually had a lot of great ideas about how to run a magazine. So, unlike Jennifer, though, I'm not going to just give it a pass to that. That's a little bit of a cop-out. There's another part to it. I didn't have faith in my own ideas, and I didn't want to take the risk that I could fail. So I'm here today to ask you to think bigger than I did. And I think that there are 3 steps to doing it, and I call it dreaming wild. So the first step to dreaming wild is to let your imagination run insanely free. So I have a challenge for you. You don't have to do it right now, but I'd like you to do it today. I want you to pull out a notebook, because we're in a college. I'm thinking of an old school notebook with spirals, not clackety-clacks. But I want you to pull out a notebook, and I want you to write down the 3 most ridiculous business ideas you've ever thought of in your life. And then I want you to take a minute to actually think about how you can make them happen. And I like to think of them as fantasy business ideas. Why fantasy? What does fantasy have to do with making big money? Well, just ask the US Trademark Office. There are 40 million new jobs added to the economy every year, and they all come from ideas-driven industries. And that's 27% of our economy. So that's 40 million jobs, 30% of our economy coming from ideas-driven businesses. And even in the professional services category where people work as like managers and consultants and lawyers, a survey recently found that there are 2 traits that they're looking for in a new employee. The first one, critical thinking. The next one, innovation. In other words, ideas. So the next challenge I have for you is that the next company that you want to work for, I want to ask you to send an idea with your resume. Can you guys think of the last time you sent in an idea? I'm wondering because I get a lot of resumes and I don't get a lot of ideas actually with them. And I want you to think of a problem in your household and in your community and think about how you could turn it into a business instead of being like, I wish somebody would just invent something already to solve the subway or whatever. Oh, well, that is unsolvable, so forget that. But I just want you to take the time to think of it because I do think that that's where everything is born. So step 2, now I want you to amplify your dreams. What do I mean by that? So I go to a lot of colleges and I talk to girls everywhere from Arizona to New Jersey, and I've been pretty amazed by how many great ideas I have found. I mean, anytime I go to a campus, a girl comes up to me with so much spirit and heart, and she has so many great things to say. But then I ask them a couple questions, like, how far do you think you could take this? And sometimes they're just like, well, I couldn't see myself leaving my hometown just for work. Or I don't want to leave my family behind. Or, you know what, actually, I just don't even see myself doing that. I mean, believe it or not, I hear that every time I go to a college campus. And I truly believe that we need to get ourselves out of this. And I'll go to my ultimate BS meter, which is Jennifer again. So when she left her town for the first time really in her life to go to Las Vegas for a trade show, it was kind of incredible because she didn't know anything about it. She didn't know from a trade show, she didn't know anything about it. And it was this big hardware show. And she was terrified. She described it as being like the most professional thing ever. I'm picturing robots and showgirls. And she comes in there with her little chain with whiskers on it. At least it wasn't floss anymore. She puts it on her IKEA shelf. And she just sat down and she cried. She was like, I wasn't even wearing the right pants to be in that room. And the next day, she won the Innovator of the Year award. Over like thousands of applicants who'd been going for years. I'm sure Rubbermaid was pissed. But she wins this big award. And actually, a few weeks ago, I just found out she made a multi-million-dollar deal with an infomercial network for that. And that's a woman who's not really worked professionally most of her life. So I'm pretty blown away by how critical just going to that show was for her, right? Just going, just showing up. And so many people I know do not do that, just as I did not do that at first. And I feel like it's especially critical for communities of color, like the one where I was raised. You see, I'm the first Mexican-American woman to go to college in my family, and I didn't really have a frame of reference for what success looked like. Sometimes I didn't see an office until I was 20 years old. And sometimes I wonder how you're supposed to imagine yourself in the corner office when you haven't seen one before. But, so I do understand where this mentality comes from, like how are you supposed to see yourself there? But I will say that there is a tremendous opportunity for us to move out of that way of thinking. And I ask this for all of us who are here who are women. This is a women's center. Only 26% of technology offices are filled with women. I think we've heard that statistic a few times. And I've known a lot of women who've been like, but how can you be in an environment with people who don't want to see you or don't want to accept you? What I say is when you own your idea and you own your dream, there is nobody else in the room. So their opinions are frankly irrelevant, as they have been for me for some time now. So step 3 in dreaming wilder for me is to be a leader. It's not enough to just project our ideas to the biggest audience possible. We also have to make it happen for other people like us too. In these college tours that I often do, another question that a lot of young women will ask me is, you know, how do you make a difference in this world? Now, the thing I find really amazing is none of them ask me how to make money. And if they do bring up money, it's kind of like, well, you know, I mean, I really want to make a difference, but if there's a way I could sort of kind of make a living also, that would be great, but I don't know. And that just kind of really blows me away, because what I always say to them is that the biggest difference that you can make in this world is to create a success for yourself as vast as possible. And here's how it worked for me. So after I got that infamous email that I deleted and almost sealed my fate as a near welfare recipient, my friend asked me a question that would frankly change my life. Are you crazy? Well, after that, she said, have you taken a second to imagine what you could get done if you had a job like that? And you know what? I had not taken a second to imagine that. So I went home and I wrote a list in a notebook. I sat there and I wrote a long list of things that would be my agenda, almost as if I were going to be president. If I were going to be an editor, what would I want to get done? And then I walked around in different higher-heeled shoes, and I pretended that I did have that job, and I imagined what my life would be like. And I took a couple of days to do that. And then when I actually got the interview, I described in detail to my boss what that agenda would be. And she went for it. A week later, I got the job of being the founding editor-in-chief of Cosmopolitan for Latinas magazine. And thank you. Thank you so much. But that didn't just make a difference for me. In the last 3 years since I launched that magazine, 4 different magazines have launched in the American Latino space. 4. And this is in a time when magazines aren't starting. The publishing industry is actually struggling a little bit. And that means that now dozens more women of color have platforms to speak their truths. And there are thousands more women that can read their stories too. And you know, in college, I used to be the type that could pass around petitions. You could see me, right? I would email like hundreds of people, and then I'd be so excited if like 50 would respond. I'm like, I'm totally calling my senator. I'm so excited. And now I speak to a platform of up to 2 million women a month, sometimes up to 30 million if I get on Cosmo's platform. And to me, I can't think of a stronger voice or avenue to be able to make a difference in this life. So it really does kind of kill me to think that I almost gave up my chance. When you betray your dream, you betray more than just your future. You give up your voice. So this is what my life looks like now. I am talking to the fastest growing minority group in this country on the biggest women's platform in the world. I've been invited to the White House, the Grammys, and even a few celebrity homes, the details of which I will not share with my former employer. And I am basically, in my private life, I used to sit around wondering how I was going to pay the rent, like 4 years ago, or how I was going to get the electricity on. And last week, somebody actually even called me offering to helicopter me randomly to Long Island for some event. I was like, what? I mean, yes. So this has gone beyond anything I could have imagined. This is more than I could have ever imagined. So I'm just here today to ask you to dream wilder, to look in every aspect of your life, to go bigger, and to try harder. Because dreaming wilder has done more than giving me just this position. It's given me the freedom to imagine a life worth living well. Thank you.